Welcome, everybody, back to the Fretboard Journal Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde. As always, that's John Rauhaus playing in the background. Every week on this show, I share a conversation with someone fascinating from the world of guitars. And last week, I was lucky enough to go up to Canada, where I got to spend some time with frequent Fretboard Journal contributor and Fretboard Journal podcast subject Mark Stutman. Mark is, of course, the proprietor and founder of Folkway Music. He's contributed to our magazine innumerable times. He even took the photograph that graces the cover of our 58th issue. He's also sponsored the magazine since pretty much its inception and just been a tremendous resource at our Fretboard Summit. And whenever we need help with anything on the guitar repair or vintage acoustic front, I was lucky enough to be skiing with Mark last week, and we were riding the chairlifts, and I was just picking his brain at every turn about vintage guitar repair, about running a store in 2026, trends that he's seen, and so much more. And then finally, after a day of skiing, when we warmed up, I was able to cobble together a couple of microphones and my laptop, and we were able to record an official conversation for you all about all of these topics and so much more. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. How many of you out there actually get outside? I have no idea. I've been thinking for months now about doing some sort of small Fretboard Journal-ish event that takes place in the great outdoors, probably not skiing related, probably something in the summer. I'm curious. Let me know, podcast@fretboardjournal.com. And whether or not you get outside, we had a great conversation that you'll get to hear. Before we get to that, I want to thank one of my other favorite guitar stores, Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar here in Seattle, Washington, for sponsoring this very podcast. Go to mmguitarbar.com to see what they have in stock, and also go check out their new Substack that's just filled with countless articles and cool essays on guitar history. We also want to thank Stringjoy Strings over in Nashville, Tennessee. It's rare that a string company actually makes their own strings, and Stringjoy does just that, including acoustic and electric guitar strings, mandolin, and banjo strings. So if you ever need a custom set or anything unique, hit them up, and also use the discount code Fretboard when you check out. I think you'll still get a discount over there at stringjoy.com. And then last but not least, Peghead Nation is sponsoring the show. I just saw Dan at Wintergrass, where a whole bunch of his instructors from the Peghead Nation roster were performing all weekend long. It's my favorite guitar instruction portal around, which is why we plug them every week. Use the discount code Fretboard when you check out. You can get your first month free. And you should all know the 58th issue of the Fretboard Journal is out now. So go to fretboardjournal.com, click on the subscribe button. You can get the current issue added to your subscription, and you'll be off to the races. And our Fretboard Summit is taking place August 20th to 22nd in Chicago. Go to fretboardsummit.org to register today. Spaces are extremely limited. All right, without further ado, here is my conversation from the Great White North with the one and only Mark Stutman of Folkway Music. Mark Stutman.
Jason Verlinde.
It's great to see you in person.
How are you doing this morning, Jason?
For a little backstory, Mark and I are both exhausted. We've been skiing for the last 2 days together, and both of us are a little rusty.
a little rusty, a little tired. It's early. We're procrastinating going out. It's a cloudy day with some snow. We're not racing to get to the ski hill this morning.
And we've, over the last 2 days, had many a lift ride, long conversation that probably would have been a better podcast than what we're recording right now.
That's very true.
But we wanted to capture some of it. For folks who don't know, I mean, you've been a repeat guest on the podcast in many different incarnations, including the guitar repair panel that we just shared from the summit. Folkway Music, your store, when did it start? And give us just the brief, I know you've told us this story before, but like how it came to be.
The brief version. So I opened my shop in 99 at the ripe age of 24. I had just finished taking Sergey DeYoung's guitar building course at that time in Oshawa, Ontario. And for a year, I tried getting a job in the field of guitar building or guitar repair. And after a year, I gave up and I just bought tools and I opened my own shop. For better or for worse, very green, very inexperienced. And I just figured I'd be a guitar builder. And of course, they weren't storming the gates to get the guitars that I had not yet built. So I would pick up a guitar and fix it, and then pick up another guitar and fix it. And then they would just be there in the store. And for some reason, someone came and bought that guitar and the next guitar, and it grew and grew and grew and grew. And today it's 26 years later.
Crazy. Going back to coming out of that school, who were your guitar building heroes? I mean, now people think of you as like the vintage Gibson acoustic guy, but like, what were you aspiring to if you had made it as a guitar building luthier?
At that point, it was really funny. Like who I am now and who I was then are very different people in terms of guitars. I was, I wanted to build guitars like that were like Larrivee guitars. I was a Canadian guitar builder. And I loved Larrivees, and my first guitar was kind of styled after the Larrivee Jumbo, which itself was styled after a J200. But yeah, Larrivee was king, and I thought I would only build left-handed guitars. That was my vision, was to have a left-handed guitar company. Again, green, naive,
a niche of a niche.
Yeah, for sure. But I remember early on there was a fellow that came in with a refinished old Gibson, and I looked at it and I had no idea what it was. I didn't know anything about vintage guitars when I started my shop. And this guitar was amazing. It sounded so good. I absolutely loved it. And I had no idea what it was. It turns out it was just an early 50s SJ that had been completely refinished and stripped. But I just didn't know anything about guitars at that point. It was completely embarrassing because the guy who brought the guitar in knew what it was, and I was supposed to be the expert, and so I wasn't, which really is what catapulted me into becoming an expert, because that was just so embarrassing. It was like life-changing embarrassment that here I was pretending to be something I wasn't. And so from that moment on, I just made it my business to know everything I could possibly know. And that was my first year. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, and for reference, like people, I think most everybody listening to this knows that like in Arizona, there's the Roberto Venn School of Lutherie, and they have different increments of programs, different levels of intensity and duration. The Sergey DeYoung program that you did up in Canada, like how long was that before they send you on your way and say, go do something in the guitar industry?
Yeah, at that point, it was like a 2-month residential program where you lived, breathed, and ate and slept guitars for 2 months. In that time, you built 2 guitars, which is what I did. And then I stuck around for, I don't know, a couple months longer, and I traded shop time. Like I helped around the shop and for use of the shop, and I built a 3rd guitar. And then that was that, and then I left, and Sergey's course was great in that it taught you how to effectively build a guitar. And it was a no nonsense, like this is how you do it, period, final. And not terribly scientific guitar building, lots of belt sander use and such, but it was great. I mean, I made 2 guitars in 2 months, and that first guitar I made is a great guitar. It's still a great guitar. I never use it because A, I don't like big guitars. B, I don't like rosewood guitars. C, I don't like long scale guitars. And it's all 3 of those. But it's still perfect, and it hasn't needed a neck reset, and it hasn't cracked, and it plays perfectly. Sergey was Jean Larrivée's first apprentice, so his style is Larrivee focus as well. And it's not who I am now. And Sergey's course taught me a lot about wood manipulation, a lot about guitars. It doesn't really inform you for guitar repair, which is what I do now.
Yeah. Did anybody in your class go on to, do we know of anybody? Is there any famous?
In my class, there's a builder named Fabricio Alberico.
Okay.
Who continued building guitars. I've lost touch with him, but I know that he continued building for a long time. He moved out here to BC sometime, I think, and continued building. And then Colin Abernathy was a wood guy, and works in conjunction with Hearn in supplying woods. Who else was in my class? A couple other guys that I don't know if they continued on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been getting a geography lesson because we happen to be at a place where literally every time you meet someone new, they're like, where are you from? But where is Folkway Music today geographically in Canada?
It's in Waterloo, Ontario, which is like an hour and a quarter southwest of Toronto.
Okay. And I'm going to ask some dumb questions because I know the answers, but I don't think most of the people listening to this do. Like Folkway Music, you do very high level vintage acoustic repair, Martins, Gibsons, other brands too. You've got a whole Instagram feed that I'll include a link to. You're one of the main people if you have a rare guitar that I would send people to.
Sure,
I think many collectors feel that way.
Yeah.
But you've got this store as well that's got a handful of new brands that you feature.
Yep, for sure. And it's a full on guitar shop.
Yeah.
Pretty boutiquey and high level. But we sell new instruments from Martin and Collings and Taylor and Atkin and Iris and National, Northfield, the regular suspects, the good stuff, as well as all the vintage and used stuff that we're really famous for. So we're a local store for new instruments, and we're an international shop for all the vintage stuff that we do. And then we have, half of our floor space is repair shop, where me and Dave Martin is our other main repair person, and a couple part-time repair guys do all the work up there.
And I will say that on yesterday's Lift Ride, you did tell me that there is a need for great guitar repair people at your shop. You could hire more.
I would do anything for another skilled repair person. We have so much work. We haven't been letting structural repair in the building, with some exceptions, but as a general rule, like, we've just been saying no because there are too many guitars in the building, and we're pretty behind on repairs. It doesn't help that I'm here skiing with you right now.
But hey, let's not talk about that. We needed our R&R to recharge.
That's right. We'll come back.
Get us through.
Totally refreshed and ready to roll.
Q2.
To reset next like crazy when I get back.
How much, we don't have to get bogged down. I've already covered this in other podcasts and tariffs and politics and everything. But at this point in 2026, like, how much of your business is, how much of your revenue is guitar repair versus guitar sales? And then I'm going to ask you the question of, like, how many of the guitar sales are new guitars versus, old classic guitars?
Guitar repair is a very small part of our revenue. We pay our salaries on guitar repair, those of us in the repair shop, but it's not really a profit center the way that we do repair work. We spend way too much time massaging the details of guitars. And I've never really, as much as I'd like to say that I run the repair shop for profit, we eke by a profit. If we were just a repair shop, we wouldn't be doing very well, because I really, truly, I'm a serious loss leader the way I do guitar repair. It takes me forever to do it the way I want to do it. And only the, most high value guitars do people mind. Do they not have a concern paying me what I should get paid for the amount of time I'm spending on their guitars? But it's important, and you can't go charging someone $4,000 to work on a $3,000 guitar. So you do what you do. The retail store is really what pays the bills, and that's great. As far as new versus vintage, I don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers really, in all honesty. I can just tell you my sensation is that it's probably 60-40 in favor of vintage and used over new. We'd like to change that. We'd like to increase this new guitar sell through, and that'll happen in time. We're working on a new website now that should really help our visibility nationally within Canada for new instrument sales. But yeah, no complaints. We're doing great. The hardest thing is sourcing vintage guitars at prices that allow us to make a few bucks on them.
Yeah, how does that work? Like, it sounds like you probably, to keep your sanity, aren't looking for guitars that are deemed like basket cases or luthier special guitars. Like,
correct.
You don't want an all-encompassing project on your hands.
I don't need any more of those. we have a whole room full of those kind of guitars that are, luthier project guitars, some of which are incredible instruments. It's crazy what kind of guitars we have there waiting to get fixed that we just haven't had a chance to do yet. But we have lots of customer repairs that we have to prioritize over the store stock huge restoration projects. Dave and I usually have one of those on the go in our, we each have, 5 or 6 guitars on the go at any given moment. You glue brace here, you glue brace there, you glue crack here, and it waits. And then, so you have a bunch of guitars that you're working on. So within our current batch, we usually have some large Folkway owned restoration project as well as all the other customer stuff. So no, we don't need more of those. We're doing a lot of consignment. It seems that everybody wants to consign guitars because they're trying to maximize their revenue, and consignment is a way to maximize their revenues. But when someone brings a guitar into the store, we give them an option. You can consign it, and when it sells, you'll net X, or you don't have to wait for it to sell, and we'll buy it for this much today, and it's a few bucks less than consignment. And some people go for that too, case by case. Yeah. We operate very transparently, so people know what their choices are.
And you still, I mean, most of your clients, I'm guessing, still are from America. They're buying and selling through you, and like you've navigated all the hoops.
Yeah, we've been navigating hoops, since 2012. Really is when CITES really came on board online, when the Lacey Act was sort of like reinvigorated.
Yeah. Back
then, and it's old hat to us. Like it takes time to get a CITES permit, but it's just a formality for us. There's nothing mysterious about it. We do it every day. We ship a lot into the States, and stuff that doesn't need a CITES permit. That's even easier. There are no tariffs. We still have a free trade agreement. And even if we didn't, the guitars that we're shipping back to the States are made in USA.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be tariffs anyways. They're American goods going home.
Yeah.
So the only thing that the whole tariff scare does to us is just make people insecure about spending money. And there's plenty of people that don't actually understand the fine print of the tariff thing. It's a much bigger deal in the media than it is in real life, certainly in our business.
That's great. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Going back to you talking about the perils of being a guitar repair person. I mean, obviously you are, the reason that I talk to you and we're friends, and the reason that you're celebrated at our summit is because you're one of the most meticulous, detail-oriented people around. And you are also one of the people, like I said earlier, who's trusted with some of these very, very, valuable, rare guitars. Looking at it, you don't have to name names. Like, is anyone making like a good living doing just guitar repair in your mind?
Sure. I think you can make a really good living doing just guitar repair. If my shop wasn't part of a store.
Yeah.
And it was just a repair shop, and I had time management skills to just let me close the door and let me do my job and not check emails and not, reply to people right away if they text me. I'd make a great living. My hourly wage is perfectly good as a guitar repair person. My expense structure for guitar doesn't pay because I have a retail store, and I'm being pulled I own that retail store too. So that guitar store owner hat pulls me off my bench with great regularity. And so, many people who operate, it makes sense to minimize your burn, meaning like have the shop on your own property so you're not paying rent, and you can write off your house. But if you're one of those people that has a shop in their house or in an ancillary building on their property, sure, and you're good with your time, you can make perfectly good money as a guitar repair person. Yeah. Like I said, I'm currently paying my salary with guitar repair, and I would love to say I'm doing 40 hours a week of guitar repair, but I'm not. It maybe works out to 30 or 28 hours a week right now that I'm doing guitar repair. Maybe even less, who knows? I still write all the copy, not all the copy, but all the acoustic copy for our website, and edit all the electric copy. I'm involved in, business direction stuff. So yeah, if I get 3 solid days of guitar repair under my belt in a week, I'm pretty happy, and on that I'm paying my salary. So that's fine.
Okay. Wow. You and I have been kind of at this game for roughly about the same amount of time. We didn't know each other back at the early days. I feel like I've observed in the 21 years of the Fretboard Journal various trends in the fretted instrument space. Ukuleles were hot. John Jorgensen played a Selmer-style guitar, so everybody wanted to be a Django player. Obviously, there's been trends in what's hip and valuable or rising in value on the vintage front as well. Like, what have you seen recently that or when talking to customers who think, hey, open this case, I think this is worth $10,000, and you have to give them the reality check. Like, what is going up in value? What's not going up in value? Like, give me your thoughts on all that.
Sure. From what I'm seeing, I mean, the values of guitars follow demographic trends. And Jason, you and I are both in our early 50s. And a lot of the people in the guitar world are also our age. Mm-hmm. And so what people like us are into is going to decide what's hot. And as such, like, I think electrics are way hotter than acoustics. And if you look at all the traditional acoustic shops, many of us are really, really, really leveraging electric at this point. And we certainly are at Folkway, which is, it's a bit of a troubling thing because our name is Folkway. It's not Rockway. We joke around the shop.
Change it.
We joke around the shop that we should have this like alter ego Rockway music.
URLs are cheap.
Anyways, so, but electrics in general, solid bodies, are on the up, and as a general rule, acoustics less so. But there's plenty of people that want a good acoustic, and because vintage acoustics are very limited, and there's attrition, and guitars are being sat on and broken, and there's all kinds of things that are making the pool of vintage acoustic guitars smaller and smaller. And because of social media and awareness, more and more people want them. Values will continue to go up. It's a simple supply and demand kind of thing. As far as new instruments, where it's not so much a supply and demand curve, we're really seeing that electrics in general are what people are into. Interesting, unique electric things that aren't exactly, the typical Les Pauls and Telecasters are more and more desired, like Novo guitars. People love those things. They don't look like a Fender or a Gibson. They got their own thing going on. We're also seeing a huge uptick among the younger people in pointy guitars. And you've seen that everywhere. I mean, at the Grammys, you saw Justin Bieber playing a purple Ibanez. Like it's like those guitars there's so many people that want pointy guitars again, and Floyds. They'll figure out soon they didn't really want a Floyd. They might have wanted a pointy guitar, but when you break a string on a Floyd, it's not so much fun anymore. But it's constantly changing. And what I like about my shop, what I like about Folkway is that after all these years, we have a niche, and I'm not going to start selling purple Ibanez's because Justin Bieber played one. I'm aware of it and all, but we're going to keep doing what we do because what we really love are traditional instruments, traditional guitars, whether they're acoustic or electric. So I recently just bought a 50s Gretsch Country Club, a left-handed one. It's like, that's what I'm into. That's the kind of guitars I like.
But I'm presuming you're having conversations with long-term clients who maybe have like a bluegrass arsenal or whatever, and they're going like, hey, when I was 16, I wanted a pointy guitar. Do you have any right now? Like, are they doing that? Is it happening where you're getting surprise requests from people?
I don't know. I've removed myself from the sales floor at the store. I have an amazing team of sales guys downstairs now, and I'm not involved. I don't answer the emails anymore, and I'm not customer facing the way I was for the first 23 and a half years of the store. And so I'm not sure what they're getting asked for. I've actually done a really good job of tuning out, and because I need to focus on guitar repair. Like, I need to get my job done. There's so many guitars. So I've got this great sales team, and I trust them implicitly. And so they do that. And so I'd have to call them and say, hey, Nathan, are people asking for pointy guitars? And he would tell me. But I think most of the people, we have 50,000 followers on Instagram, and we posted a picture. The other day they posted a picture of a pair of sisters that brought a 57 Strat in, and like the phone was ringing off the hook. They told me, and like a zillion emails about it. We got a Klon Centaur in, and I think it's already sold. It's being listed today. It might already be sold.
For $7,000 US, is that right?
It wasn't that much. It was 7,500 Canadian, which is what, like 55 US or something like that.
Still.
Yeah, but what the heck? There's not that many of those things on the planet.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, that just the electric versus acoustic divide, and the, I wonder if it's just like there's more to choose from on the electric side. So there's a little bit more curiosity about like different weird models, like you were saying about Novo. Or
It's fun. Electrics are fun. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a couple great acoustic guitars, and they're always out at my house, and I'll pick one up and strum it for a little bit. But I go to my band practice every Monday night and rock out for 2 or 3 hours, and it's super fun. It's just like you got to call a spade a spade. Like it's fun to rock out on an electric guitar. It doesn't matter who you are, and you know, if you dial in, there's much less mystery about how to get good tone today than there was 30 years ago before the internet came around. 30 years ago, I'd go to band practice and I had my Strat and my Hot Rod Tweed Deluxe, and I sounded like crap no matter what I did. And I had like this yellow Tortex pick. I just sounded awful.
Yeah.
And then I'd go and jam with this guy who showed up with this. I remember clearly it was like a TV front Fender Super, and he had a 335 and he just plugged right in, and his tone was like, what the heck is that tone? And I was there with my, all my pedals, and I just couldn't touch this guy. And it was a mystery. Like, what is that mystery? Why did he sound so good? But now the mystery's gone. People know how to get that tone, right? So now you plug in and you sound like a rock star because you figured it out and you got the right gear, and it's fun. I got to admit it. Like I love playing my electrics. I love playing my acoustics too. I play them a lot. I don't rock out at home at my kitchen table with my electric guitar. I have to pick up my LG2 or something and just have fun with it. But there's definitely demand for both. We've seen the prices of acoustics go up like crazy too. I mean, we listed and sold a Kel Croydon for $11,500 2 weeks ago. US, it sold instantly. And, it wasn't that long ago that we were selling those guitars for $1,800. Like it's not that long ago. LOOs, like we're listing an LOO today at $7,500 USD. I used to buy those guitars on eBay in the early 2000s for $750 and then flip them for $1,800. People want them. They're great. There's a reason. I think people want all kinds of guitars. There's just so much more availability of information, and we're all reading on the internet and watching people play these things, and acoustic or electric, it doesn't matter. There's people want them.
Have you rattled off some of the brands you carry, like Atkins, National, Collings, Martin? Has this sort of trend you just outlined made you think like maybe it's time we carry one or two more electric brands?
Yeah, we would like to carry some more electric brands for sure, and we will. It's a question of which. Our Canadian perspective affects our decision making a lot. If you take a guitar that is $4,500 US in the States and you put it in Canada, that guitar is going to be 6,500 Canadian or 6,200 Canadian or something. And Canadian salaries and American salaries are pretty similar. So most companies have their price lists set for the American buyer, who can justify a $4,500 purchase. But if that same guitar in the States was $6,200, would they sell them? I don't know. So we have to be super careful in Canada because of how much more things cost given the currency conversion that we deal with. More expensive shipping. We have 13% sales tax. Things are just expensive, right? And so there is economic uncertainty right now. There is a lot of inventory on the market. There's a lot of new instruments in stores, lots of manufacturers, lots of options. And so we are a little reluctant to go deep into new instrument territory, just given the moment that we're in right now. Whereas we know with vintage and used, the competitive structure is very different. Sure, there's lots of 60s Gibsons on reverb and such, but do they work? Have they been repaired at Folkway? Do they need a neck set? Do they need frets? Like, people know when they buy a guitar from us, it's going to work. And so we don't feel the competitive pressure as much with vintage stuff because we have this ability to make them sell well and a reputation for guitars that actually work when you buy them. So I think that is a better place in my mind for us to sort of intensify our spend and deepen our niche in.
Yeah. You mentioned the Kel Croydon that sold in minutes. Like, you are, I think everybody would think of as the person, if you had one of those guitars, you'd send it to you. Are you the only one? Like, are other people trustworthy with these instruments? I mean, I know you have a very high bar, and I also know you're humble, but like, is this knowledge getting passed around? I mean, we talked about you potentially doing a book at some point, which you totally should do.
You know what? So I don't know the answer to your question. Here's the challenge when you say, are other people trustworthy? I don't know, because I haven't seen their work, right? And you can only go so far with like what you see, what's shiny on Instagram, and what other people say about somebody. It's not really fair to, word of mouth is wonderful and it's worked really well for me, but word of mouth is not always accurate. It's very subjective. And the other thing about it is that, like, the work that I've seen of other people's, it's a bit of a biased sample because, like, if someone comes to me with a guitar that they're unhappy with it because they got some bad work done somewhere else. You're only seeing the bad stuff.
Yeah.
The people that are happy with their repair person are not bringing me their guitar.
Sure.
So I don't see the good stories. I just see the bad stories. And it's very easy to sort of, be biased by that. I'm sure there are great repair people out there. I know there are great. I know many of them personally that I've met over the years that appear to be fabulous. Do they have as much firsthand experience with Gibsons from the 30s? Well, probably not. Like, really, truly, I think that I was at the right place at the right time with the right interest to become who I am as this, like, vintage flat top specialist. If I was 15 years younger, I wouldn't have been able to buy guitars. Like, I was buying 2 to 5 guitars a week on eBay back in the early 2000s for too little money. And I would get like 3 or 4 LG2s a week. And the reason I got famous on Gibson is because Gibsons were the guitars on eBay back then that you could actually make money on. You can buy them and flip them. Martins were already too much money. Everyone knew if they saw a Martin, they should buy it. But an LG2, people were just like, yeah, sure, $900, see you later. And so and nobody knew the difference between them all. A banner, like the various kinds of banners, a 40s versus a 50s versus, nobody knew any of that stuff. And so I get them and I learn about them. We don't have that option today because guitars are worth a lot more money. There's no like amazing finds any longer. You can't just like buy vintage guitars at wholesale like you used to be able to. And so I think my little trick is that I've seen so many guitars and have been very analytical with how I've looked at them. And I'm a little bit heavy duty with my attention to 1,000th of an inch kind of detail. You put all that together, and so I have something there, but as far as just like raw skill, like you take guitar repair guy X, who's really good. If I just showed him what I know or her, they would be amazing too. Yeah. Right? Like, I don't have any superpowers in terms of repair skills. I'm just a guy. I just have seen a lot of stuff and I'm very accurate minded and attentive to 1,000th of an inch. So by extension, my employee, Dave Martin. David Martin's a guitar repair guy. He's an amazing craftsman. He's amazing. He's amazing at his job. He's so good. But he didn't know anything about vintage guitars when he started at Folkway 6 years ago or whatever it was. He just had really good skills, really good craftsmanship skills. And he was a great guitar builder. And so over the last 6 years, I've shown him everything. Whenever something interesting is on my bench, I'm like, hey, Dave, come check this out. Dave, I have this cool idea. And so he's been absorbing all that. And now he's an absolutely incredible vintage guitar repair person. Right. So it's exposure. Yes, you need to have you have to have good skills, but you also have to have exposure and attention to detail. And I think that for me just all came together because I was there at the right place at the right time.
This is the point in the podcast where you guys all email me and tell me you'll pre-order his book, and then we force him to do it. Podcast at fretboardjournal.com. I feel like I've probably asked you this every single time I've talked to you, but like, having been in this game for 20 plus years, working on these Gibson acoustics, which are famously quirky and unique and sometimes cobbled together. And I'm sure from your perspective, a Pandora's box, whereas Martins are kind of predictable.
Sure.
Are you still surprised? Do you still see stuff where you're like, what the hell were they thinking in Kalamazoo, Michigan?
Oh, every day. Every day. It's a constant parade of weird and wonderful when you work on Gibsons, particularly from the 1930s. They did crazy stuff, and they were just getting stuff sold. Like the early 30s when they were nearly out of business, like, get it out of here, ship that thing, fix it. Don't waste that guitar. You know, sure, you've got like a big chip in the neck. Well, splice a piece of wood on there and throw some fresh finish on it and ship it out. They've done so many crazy things. So there are no surprises. There's lots of laughter. Like when guitars come in, like I'll look at some LOO or something and just crack up at what I see inside. Because they didn't know what they were doing. Nobody knew what they were doing in the early 30s about how to design a steel string guitar. I mean, that's why those guitars are so special. That's why those first OMs are so special, why the first dreadnoughts are so special. They didn't really know what they were doing, and they built guitars that were accidentally amazing. They tended to fall apart, which is why they changed so much by the late 30s. And so Martin, of course, was much more linear and I don't know what the word is, pragmatic in their thought processes of guitar design, whereas Gibson was just like getting it done.
Okay.
Is from what I can tell, from what it looks like. I'm actually not a guitar historian per se, like a company historian.
Sure.
I just know the guitars. And to me, what it looks like is Gibson was just like, hey, try some of that, you know, and that's what they did.
Were they freestyling the most in one category, neck joint, neck, or is it kind of all over the place? They were just having...
They were all over the place. I mean, neck joints are funny throughout. I mean, they're like right up into the late 30s, like a number of J55s that I've worked on have had the craziest weird wedges in the heel of the neck that they must have, like, to tighten the dovetails that were loose, rather than shimming the dovetails out, they would make like a loose dovetail, and they would wedge it with these two wedges that went from the heel cap, which there wasn't, up towards the fretboard between the heel of the neck, like the cheeks of the heel, and the sides. And that would add tightness, and they would wedge, like glue it all in there together at the same time, and it would tighten things up. I mean, those are like, what were they thinking? Then there's the whole top over dovetail thing that nobody really understands what was going on, including me. You get these weird shims under fretboards. Like, their neck joints are all over the map from the get-go. You know, their bridge designs were all over the map. Bracing was, I mean, some of the funniest guitars, like in 32, when Gibson was transitioning from a 12 to a 14 fret guitar, right in that era, there was this one batch of 13 fret LOOs that was made. I think it's batch 369. And those guitars have tops that were braced for 12 fret guitars. But they moved the sound hole and the X brace down because they needed one extra fret worth of room. But they didn't move where the finger braces were. And so the finger braces on those guitars are positioned for 12 fret bridge placement. You put a 13th fret on a guitar, the bridge moves north by 1 fret, in this case, maybe 5/8 of an inch or something. But those finger braces didn't move, and so the finger braces are behind the bridge. They catch the back corner of the bridge. A finger brace is supposed to support the top from torquing forward under string tension, and you put them in the front of the bridge to support the front. These finger braces are on the back, so every one of those 13 fret LOOs has terrible top deflection. And a lot of the other 13, like the guitars from 32, late 32, those first 14 fretters, have lots of top deflection because they hadn't figured out where to put the finger braces relative to the bridge.
Okay.
And so it's not uncommon for me to move finger braces on a guitar from 1932, a 13 or 14 fret, because they got them in the wrong place, and the guitars can't handle string tension. The tops are often very thin from that era too, so they just don't have strength. You can pull a finger brace out, make a reproduction, and stick it in there and fix the top arch. And there's crazy, weird stuff. So I'm constantly, or not constantly, but not infrequently, sort of rethinking what Gibson was doing and just making a guitar actually work.
I'm guessing a fun mental exercise for you, being kind of a, you know, I think all great guitar repair people are kind of preservationists at their core. Like, you're looking at these guitars, they have to play in tune. They can't implode in the next generation. But are you like keeping those shims from Kalamazoo in the 30s, even though you're rolling your eyes at them in some cases?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. I want to keep the guitar. I want the guitar to be exactly what it is. I don't want to change the guitar, but I want to make it work. And so, I'm reslotting bridge saddles for sure that are in the wrong place. But like those funny wedge shims, like on the heel of the J55, I'm leaving those. Absolutely. The shims that are underneath fretboards, they'll be modified. Maybe a new shim will go in there because it needs it for its spacing for the neck to fit the sides. But I'm making them work. A big problem with most vintage guitars, but particularly with Gibsons from the 30s, is fret location. Mm-hmm. And Gibsons often have fret spacing that's kind of willy-nilly. And you measure from the nut to the 12th fret, and you're like, oh yeah, this is 24 and 3/4 inch scale. But if you actually put a scale ruler on that, the fret spacing can be very wonky. And so some guitars play in tune really well, and some guitars play out of tune, even though they intonate correctly at the 12th fret. So that's a challenge. And I think in the future, that's going to be something future repair people deal with when it's easier to, we're not okay with changing fretboards. Yeah. That hasn't happened. But, Plek machine technology will allow you to move fret slots. I don't yet have a Plek machine. I'd love to have one. I don't have one. I don't have space for one. But I know TJ moves fret slots if he needs to on a guitar. He'll fill them and recut them with the Plek to make the guitar play in tune. It's genius. It's great technology for that. And that's sort of, for me, that's the biggest fail of vintage guitars is their intonation. Mm-hmm. Because of fret spacing. I have my favorite electric guitar is a Martin. It's a GT70, one of those really funny looking Martins from the late 60s with the crazy, pointy headstock.
Yeah, pointy.
It's pointy. Yeah, it's pointy. I love that guitar, but it is a monster for out of tune. Like the frets are just in dumb places. They just got the frets are badly located. And it's tempting. It's so tempting to just fill those slots and recut them. I was half tempted just to put a Telecaster neck on it, but
I probably could have gotten a job at Gibson in the 30s. I don't know anything about woodworking. I can barely hang a shelf on, when my kid asks for a shelf. You can keep a fretboard, move a fret, I'm guessing incrementally because these frets weren't that off.
Yeah.
You can fill it, move it, and it's sort of like almost invisible, and with a Plek or skills that you or TJ Thompson or
with enough care,
really,
for sure. You can't just like pack it full of dust and glue and cut a fret slot. You have to fill that fret slot properly with wood, wood and epoxy, and just make sure it's solid like a rock before you drill cut a fret slot next to it, like 10th thou away.
It's crazy,
but it's doable. Is it ideal? Well, no, it's not as good as a fresh fretboard for sure, but it can work. And if you can't go changing the fretboard on a guitar, it's a good way to deal with it. And frets usually, unless they're bar frets will cover the evidence of that old slot. It's a nasty surprise for the next guy, for sure. Yeah. Like doing a refret, and you're like, you pop a fret out, and you're like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah,
it might be a lot of work for the next guy. So it's good to not hide that stuff that you've done it, so people know. But it's doable. Yeah. Is it easy? No, it's not so easy. Is it fast? No, it's not so fast. It's doable without a Plek machine too. It's just way easier and more accurate with a Plek machine.
Interesting.
It would be. I don't think this is something that people do very regularly. Like really, truly. It's not like TJ is like doing this on every guitar. He's told me that he has done this, particularly on Gibsons, when he has had to work on them for good customers. He tries to avoid them, obviously, but it's been known to happen that he does have one on his bench.
When we're talking about these esoteric, they came from Gibson, which is one of the most famous names in guitar making. When we talk about these quirky, some of them are kind of one-offs, or there was some weird shim going on. Everyone's natural tendency as a guitar maker is to, build the golden era guitars in the current day. A lot harder with Gibson, where there's no kind of like gold standard of like what a Martin D18 or D18 sounds like, because they're also different.
They're so unique, yeah.
I know our mutual friend Jackson Cunningham, who is going through some health issues right now, and there's a GoFundMe everyone should go support. you have said is one of the better people at replicating that old Gibson vibe. Like, is it a attainable thing even? Like,
I don't think so. Okay. And this is why you don't see me building guitars. Everyone would think that I should build LOOs, and there's no reason. Like, I would build probably the closest approximation to an LOO that you could possibly build, and it still wouldn't be an LOO, and you can go buy one for $7,500. So go buy one. I don't think it's and Martins too. I mean, people have figured out the vintage Martin formula, and the best new versions of vintage Martin guitars sound incredible. Do they sound like 85-year-old vintage Martin guitars? No. They do amazing things, and maybe they will down the road. But with Gibsons, it's even different, because I think that the sloppiness of the original build has a lot to do with how they sound. There's time, there's materials, there's glue, there's all this stuff, right? It all adds up. And like we talked about at the summit, that 3% talk.
Yeah.
Nolly and DJ and I did, like, every little thing adds up to how a guitar sounds. And there's a lot that Gibson did that we just can't do because we physically don't have those materials or those working conditions or their jigs that they built on. But, we all laugh about, like, Gibsons and the bridge plate that is, like, a quarter of an inch away from the X brace, or the finger braces that are in the wrong places, or loose back braces because the radiuses didn't match and all this stuff. Any modern builder is not going to build it so that the bridge plate's a quarter inch away from the X brace. It's not going to happen. They care too much, right? They're not a factory building sloppy stuff. But that's part of the sound of that guitar. And the sloppiness of the build imparts a significant amount to the sound of the guitar. And those loose back braces, that's often the magic of a Gibson. You get a like the most thumpy, terrible sounding by traditional modern guitar builder sort of standards Gibson is often the sound of loose braces, right? That thumpy, lo-fi sub bass that happens, and lack of, like, fundamental focus and clarity that you get with, like, a good, like, 40s J45 with dead strings on it. It's often that guitar has, like, 8 loose back brace ends and loose top, like, tone bars, and that's the magic. And sometimes if you fix that stuff, the guitar is going to change. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's for the better, But, for example, Kenneth from the Milk Carton Kids was at my store like 10 years ago.
Yep.
And he picked up this LOO. It's called Katrina, because this is a guitar I bought on eBay, and it was a victim of the hurricane.
Yep.
And it was full of, like, mud and nastiness, and it was just hanging as decor on the shop because I was not about to fix this guitar. But it had strings on it. They were ancient. They had been through Katrina as well. And it like, on paper, needed a ton of work to be up to standards that I would sell it at. Kenneth came in and he picked up that guitar and fell in love with that guitar. Fell in love with it, took it home with him for next to nothing because it was effectively worthless.
Sure.
He still records most everything with that guitar. It has the same strings on it. It has not changed in 10 years. And
they didn't do anything to it.
And it's magic. It's a magical guitar. The thing is magic. He sounds amazing on it. It just works. And something you just can't mess with. It's a magical guitar. Is it perfect? No. Does it play terribly well? No. The strings he won't even change the strings, right? So, tone is such a funny thing, and there's often a real disconnect between perfection and perfect tone. And so, as a repair person, you have to be very cognizant of that. That was I guess that's how that Fretboard Summit talk with DJ and Nolly and I, like, it started with the Gibson adjustable bridge thing. I used to change those adjustable bridges all the time. And now people realize, you know what? A good ceramic adjustable saddle bridge, an early one, that's a magic guitar. Don't mess with that. I've even sold guitars with plastic bridges on them. We used to pull the plastic bridges off all the time because they're terrible. It's a terrible design. It's awful. Structural integrity is pathetic, and tops often develop cracks and stuff. But there's a tone that you can't get with anything else that is directly the result of that bolted on plastic bridge and that saddle. And a lot of that, like, that's an important thing to consider, right? So I think, like, no one today is going to build a guitar with a plastic bridge on it. I know Joe Glazer is actually making replacement plastic bridges for some of his Nashville cats.
Wow.
He's come up with because those bridges fall apart, so he put a new Joe Glazer bridge on it. But we're finally okay with that. Like, this guitar, this is what this guitar does, period. You know, warts and all.
I'm hearing you talk, though, and my wheels are turning, because I'm thinking there is someone out there with 2 unsold contemporary era Gibson acoustics, and at the Fretboard Summit, we can have someone loosen the back braces of one of them and do an A/B test.
You could easily. It's tough with the contemporary Gibson because there's so many other things that are
okay. Never mind.
Making those guitars not sound as good as they could. But if you first hot rodded those guitars, you know, and removed material from them and changed the weight and dimensions of the bridge and the saddle and the neck, like all these things that Gibson could improve upon, you find 2 and they were close enough. Yes, you can loosen the back braces off and you would hear a tremendous difference. But it also, like, you can't have a back that's 140 thou thick and expect to hear a lot of difference. Your back still has to be 110, right?
We're going to need a belt sander, everybody.
You need a belt sander too.
Oh, boy.
Thick finish. There's so many variables. It all adds up. But really, truly, like, we re-glue braces on every guitar that we sell. We don't sell guitars with loose braces.
Yeah.
And the guitars that we sell sound great. But there are those magical guitars that, you know, someone. Let me put it to you this way. If a musician comes in and they have, you know, the J45 that they've played for 30 years and they've written every song on it and it's very inspiring to them, and it comes in and it needs a setup and the frets are toast, and we notice that all the back braces are loose, we will inform them, hey, all your back braces are loose. This is probably why your neck angle is shifting so much. But if we glue them, there's a good chance it will sound different when we're done.
Yeah.
Do you want us to? And sometimes they're really happy to have sort of like, it's like, you know, it's like a new outfit, you know, and they're like, yeah, I'd love to hear what this guitar sounds like if it's all glued together, right? Other times they're like, no, don't change that. That guitar is everything to me. Its mojo is like, it's magic. We're not going to touch it.
It's like ordering a sandwich. You can say light on the mayo, light on the back brace, gluing, make it a little loose. Give it 60%.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. It's really interesting. In my study of guitars, some of my favorite sounding early 30s guitars are the ones that were retopped in like 32 or 33, like an L2 or an L1 or something from 1930 that had those like tiny, small braces, those 1/2 inch tall, 3/8 inch tall braces. Those tops often failed early on because they couldn't handle string tension, and the guitars would get shipped back, and then Gibson would do a new top on them. And that's when you find all this top over dovetail stuff. Anyways, the guitars that have those very, very light back braces with a top that is more spec, like a 32, 33 spec top, taller braces, slightly thicker top. For me, those are often the best sounding. Best sounding Gibsons. The best L2 I've ever had was one of those. The best Kells I've had, the best L1s I've had were all original 1930 guitars with a top from 32.
I mean, how many of these can exist?
There's lots. It's like, it's not uncommon to see a guitar that's been retopped from Gibson from the early 30s, which is why I know how to diagnose them. And so, yeah, you get these guitars with these back braces that are so thin that the back just moves like crazy, but the top is much stiffer. So you get this really interesting, complex bass and warmth and open, cavernous kind of thing. But you also get the headroom and power of a top that's braced appropriately. And you mix those together, man, it's a magical sounding thing. Yeah.
I look forward to reading the book. That's all I'll say. Let's shift gears a little bit. We've been skiing, for the last couple of days at a, reasonable level for a couple of middle-aged guys and skiing fast. And in your pocket the entire time, thank God you haven't fallen, is a Leica film camera. This is like a hobby that, like, I think everything you put yourself into, like you've fallen head over heels for, and you're like super into.
Yeah.
Obviously photography, a lot of people love that. You have to do photography for your store website or whatever. Like, talk to me a little bit about what has made you so obsessive about that new thing.
So it's not new. I've been taking pictures for a very, very, very long time. I got my first real camera when I was like 13 or something like that. I was the yearbook photographer. I worked in the darkroom at university and taught people how to develop their prints. I've shot forever. And then the digital era came, and I got into fancier and fancier DSLRs, and all my shooting ended up being about guitars in our studio for our website. And I got really good at product photography. And it's always been something that I've loved. Like, long before guitars, I was into photography. I was never a gearhead for photography, but I was into photography. And then digital cameras came around, and they changed a lot about the way one takes a picture. And over, in the last 10 years or so, I've sort of missing the experience of photography, of manual focus, of intentional, take your time, frame a picture, get the exposure, shoot it, rather than like digital, press a button and the picture's perfect kind of photography. And I've been jonesing for that old feel of shooting. And so I would take manual focus lenses and stick them on my DSLRs. And it was close, but it wasn't the same. And then a couple of years ago at a summit, I was hanging out with Brian Fisher, who's done a lot with Fretboard Journal, and he had this super fancy Leica digital camera, and I tried it, and I was like, "Wow, this is what I've been missing." And so for my 50th birthday, I basically bought myself a really fancy digital Leica, and it sort of reinvigorated me into photography again. And it's a slippery slope with cameras and gear as it is with guitars and amps and pedals and whatever else. And I've got the guitars I want,
Yeah.
I'm good. So I got heavier into photography and then got heavier into film photography. And now I do a lot of digital and a lot of film photography. And it's a great hobby. Like, for 24 years, apart from my family and my kids, all I did was guitars.
Yeah.
All I did, everything I did on my computer, online, emails, all of my gearheadedness and sort of that thing that so many males do was all about guitars. And I just needed a different hobby. It's great. And I got a lot done. And every night I was in my repair shop fixing guitars. And this is 25 years in. Like, come on, 50 years old, like, need a different hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was still doing stuff and mountain biking, whatever else, but like nothing that I threw myself deeply into. And cameras came back into my life, and I just loved it. I just absolutely love it. And the film photography is a real challenge. It's hard to be a good film photographer. It's hard to read tricky exposures and have a small negative and not be able to crop in and the resolution, all. So I like the challenge of it. And so I carry a camera with me everywhere I go now.
Yeah. I mean, it seems almost impossible to learn from your mistakes when your mistake might have happened 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you took a shot on a street corner and then had to have it developed, and then you get the result later. I mean, obviously, you know what you did wrong, or you can learn from it, but there is this longer timeline. It's not the instantaneous, I took a shot and I'm going to post on Instagram and this one looks shittier than this one.
Yeah. So with digital, you know what you did wrong instantly, right? With film, unless you're keeping notes, as a lot of film photographers do, they actually have a notepad and they write their exposure information down for each picture. I'm not that guy. There's no way I'm ever going to be that guy. Yeah. Just take pictures, and some of them work and some of them don't. But it's okay. I don't need... It's more just the excitement of developing a roll and seeing a shot on that roll that is actually really interesting and artsy. And so I like it. It tickles a fancy that guitars don't tickle for me any longer. And it's nice to have something else in life that is super interesting to me. Guitars are super interesting to me, and I see new things every day. But it's nice to have something else to think about also,
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, at least in my case with I've been trying to run more. Like, I've really enjoyed being a beginner at something
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like there's hope for me to not always be a beginner, but
Sure.
it's just been nice to be the dumb guy in the forum looking up, is this shoe better than this shoe or
That's
whatever it is. You're clearly been taking photographs your whole life and in it, but yeah, there's something beautiful about that.
And call a spade a spade. The gearhead side of it is really fun. I've bought and sold a lot of lenses over the last 2 years, and tried them out. And yeah, I like this one. No, I like this, and discovered what it is. It's not just the image quality of a lens when I buy a lens. It's the feel. The same way on a guitar, the neck feel has so much to do with it. You might have always wanted a Les Paul, but if you got one and the neck didn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. Doesn't matter how good it sounds. So there's a lot of overlap there. I mean, gearheads are gearheads, and whatever you're going to be a gearhead with, you're a gearhead. And so many of us, particularly males of our species, are gearheads about something. So I'm just trying to now, go past the gearheadness. I now have what I want, and I enjoy using the equipment, and just be happy doing it. And then bring the pendulum back a little bit towards the middle, and have this hobby, and also have my profession, which started as my hobby, But so I carry my camera, and we carry it skiing. They're small, fits in the pocket. Got some good pics yesterday. I don't know if they're good. We'll find out. They might be terrible.
Yeah, in a month.
Who knows?
Is there anything?
Oh, sorry. One more thing. But the other thing about photography that I really love, like a guitar repair could be 6 months. It could be start to finish 6 months. A fast guitar repair start to finish in a week.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. But taking a picture, start to finish, you're done. Even if if you're going to post produce it and everything, maybe you've got 15 minutes. It's so nice to have an artistic project that can be done quickly.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who's also a guitar builder. He worked for me for many years, and he left Folkway to start a bread company.
Oh.
And he makes just the most incredible sourdough. And he's got a very successful business with 14 employees now making sourdough bread.
It's a good lesson for everyone out there. Get out of the guitar business. Start making good bread.
And so he's a guitar builder, and he just finally finished an octave mandolin that he started in 2002. And he finally got around to finishing it. And but he took up green wood turning a few years ago. And he loves it so much because he can make a bowl start to finish in 15 minutes. And it's a beautiful thing. And there's ones that take him longer, of course, because then he adds lots of gouge work to it, and carving, and maybe painting and other stuff. But it's wet wood turning. And so you turn the thing, and then it dries and it shrinks into some wacky, twisted version of itself. And part of that is the beauty of the finished product. Right? He's not chasing the perfection of a perfectly turned dry wood walnut bowl. He's going for the organic, and that allows him to have this artistic expression, this artistic fulfillment, without the need for perfection and without the need for it taking up way too much of your time. You can start and finish in a day, done. And it's really good for your mental health, really, to have something that you can generate that sensation, that fulfill the artistic need that you have as an artist, but have it not take your whole life, and drive you crazy while you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about in my life, I write out these to-do lists, and usually you gravitate towards these gigantic to-dos. I'm going to do all my taxes, or we're going to overhaul the website. But it's really important to have some really insignificant things, like get a cup of coffee at 10 a.m. Because then at least you're scratching something off. You're making progress.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I really, after 25 years of doing guitar repair, some guitars really are just, they're forever. I'm looking at these guitars forever. It is really, the camera thing, the photography thing really does scratch the itch of being artistic in small doses and being able to get that fulfillment. And I think it's made me a happier person. So I'm really happy about it.
Is we're talking with both cameras and guitars about new and old vintage collectible gear. We're talking about fairly big ticket items, at least when we talk about these sort of collectible camera brands or guitar brands. Are there vast differences between selling a Klon for $7,000 and a Sumilex lens for $7,000? Like, have you learned anything from the camera industry where you're like, I wish we had this in the guitar industry?
I think in both industries, the diminishing returns are a real thing, right? So I don't use a Klon. My favorite overdrive pedal is called a Red Snapper by this company Manatone. And it's like a vintage one from the 90s. Doug Pettibone told me about it many years ago.
Okay.
And I mean, they're worth a good pile now, I guess. When I bought mine, it was $200, like 15 years ago or something. But is the Klon 10 times better than the Red Snapper? No, of course it's not. I mean, apart from the subjectivity differences, right? But if you actually could like measure something quantitatively, is it better? It's not 10 times better, So is this 59 Les Paul, 100 times better than an R9? No, and so there's diminishing returns in everything. Is a Rolex watch better at telling time than my Swiss Army? No, so it's not really even about that in the collectible camera world as it is with the guitars. Like a Leica Sumilex lens does what it does, and it has a look. It's very sharp, which is what it does that other lenses can't do when it's wide open, and it has a certain look to it. Now, you can take a great picture with a potato camera. It's like, and so if you have all the money in the world and you can spend it on an expensive camera lens, knock yourself out, go for it. But don't let the fact that you can't make that limit who you are. I mean, look at Blake Mills and some of the crappy guitars that he plays that sound absolutely incredible, right? Why? Because it's Blake Mills coming out of his fingers, right? There's so many musicians around that just play their weird guitars and they sound incredible doing it. I mean, yes, it's nice to have these awesome guitars and it's enjoyable to have things. We like collecting things of value. But that doesn't mean the things that are of lesser value are to be discounted. So as such, I've sold off all my Leica lenses. Wow. I don't own them anymore. They're a lot of money, and I wanted to have, a different, like I wanted a medium format film camera. So I sold a lens and bought a film camera, or I sold a lens and sell a camera and take my family to Europe. Like you just have priorities. If you're not like the world's wealthiest person, you just have to have priorities with how you spend your money. So that's part of it for me too. But I think it's important in my little journey, it's been important to purchase those things, use them for a while, see what they're about, and be okay with not having them anymore. Right. And when it comes to guitars, it's kind of the same way. Like I've owned left-handed Strats and Telecasters from the 60s. I don't have them anymore. Right. Because my Micah Bruce Telecaster is killer. And so that's the Telecaster I grab, and I had a left-handed Gretsch Duojet from the late 50s, and it was amazing. But I don't have it anymore. Why? Because the one that I have now that's less expensive does the trick for me. That said, I do have a 5E3 Deluxe at home, and I have got a great Gibson GA20 at home.
Yeah.
And I do have my vintage LG2 and my LOO and my vintage Mark. Like I have plenty. I definitely do believe the vintage guitar thing, but just because it's value doesn't mean it's the one you have to keep, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I guess there's value in things that are less monetarily valuable.
Yeah. Long
and short. It took me a long time to get to that point.
No, that was great.
But it's important. And I'm really happy to sell expensive stuff that's valuable. And some of those guitars, they're worth every penny. Like go find a 34 Herringbone. Right? Like there's a reason that guitar is worth that much money, because nothing in the world sounds like that guitar. And sure, there's diminishing returns. I get that. But if you play one of those, you get it. There is nothing that comes close to that guitar. And the same is true of like a Kel Croydon from 1930. There's nothing that sounds like that guitar. So yeah, you're going to have to pay for it,
What's the most expensive guitar Folkway's ever sold?
I don't know, maybe a 35 D28.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that? I don't know. We've sold a few above 100K.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stores that sell much more expensive guitars than that all the time. The people that are into bursts and 54 Strats and D45s and stuff. But we've never sold a burst. We've sold I've sold a bunch of Style 45 Martins and pre-war D28s and things, but 100K, 150K is sort of, I think, where we've been most expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, we have to go back outside.
Yeah. Snowing out there. Lots of snow out there right now.
Okay. Well, that's our cue. Thank you as always. Like it's a joy to hear your what you do and to share your expertise. And I'm not kidding. Everybody write in about his book because we need to prod him and convince him to do it.
Well, if you help me with it, maybe I will.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the podcast, Dan. I appreciate it.
All right. That was my chat with Mark Stutman. I hope you enjoyed it. Sounds like he's got a job opening for some great repair person who wants to work in Canada. Go let him know if you are interested. And thanks as always for tuning in to the Fretboard Journal Podcast. Go leave us a good review over on Apple Podcasts if you like the show.